Rogue Trooper has equipment that talks to him. Bagman, gunner and helm are the genetic infantryman's best friends. They're his pals, they're his homeboys, they're his rotten soldiers, they're his sweet cheeses, his good time boys. And I'm so jealous. Yes, I'm sure he would prefer his friends were still alive and walking about, and not to have his comrades' consciousnesses uploaded into his equipment. But hell, that must be so useful. Oi, Keys, where the boo-hoo are you? I'm down the side of the sofa with the Pringles crumbs, mate. Come find me. Think how much time that would save in the morning. I'd rather not have a fallen chum's mind uploaded into my pants, however, although I'm sure it would be absolutely atrocious for them. I mean, even more so. Rogue Trooper is a dystopian science fiction comic strip that follows the struggles of the blue-skinned rogue. The endless war of attrition between the Southers and the fascistic Noughts on the planet of New Earth is our setting, and it's a bleaker setting that you'll not see this side of the interior of Blackpool's Norbreck Hotel. As I previously cracked wise about at the beginning of this endeavour, he is accompanied by a trio of his former band of brothers as his equipment. They were all felled during warfare, and the infantry's gun, backpack and helmet all offer him tactical advice, company and support. First appearing in British comic 2000 AD, Rogue Trooper is second only to Judge Dredd in terms of popularity from that particular periodical, exploring themes of betrayal, revenge, the brutalities of war and the dehumanising effects of conflict. It was created by 2000 AD stalwart writer Gary Finley-Day and initially drawn by Dave Gibbons, who you may remember as being behind the pen of the incredible Watchmen comic. Rogue Trooper is incredibly, fortuitously for me in fact, who had no idea until I started researching it, getting the cinematic treatment in 2025, courtesy of Moon director and Bowie offspring Duncan Jones, who will be behind the camera as well as producing and writing. Jermaine Clement, Anne Revin Barnard, Reece Shearsmith, Hayley Atwell and Matt Berry,
New York City,
will be lending their larynx to this cinematic venture, which is going to be animated. And Sean Bean's in it too. Shall we make a sweepstake on when his character bites the Reaper sour biscuit of death? Rogue Trooper is obvious video game fare, and so it has had a few cracks at the digital fun whip. As well as the game we're covering today, the earliest of the set, there was also a so-so platform shooter courtesy of Chrysalis Software on the ST and Amiga, and a bloody great but often overlooked PlayStation 2, PC, Xbox and Wii game, which was a third-person Gears of War-esque shooter in 2006. This received a spruce-up for the PS4, Switch and Xbone in 2017, which is well worth tracking down if you like that kind of jiggery-pokery. Piranha Software released Rogue Trooper in 1986, the same year that they gave us the mighty Trapdoor. Oh, what a game that is. Coding duties for the three formats it emerged on, those being the Commodore 64, the Spectrum and the Amstrad, were handled by Mancunian coders at Design. There aren't any major differences between the three versions other than the usual colour variations, which are limited by the hardware. Other than that, all three play identically. The game places you in the khakis of the eponymous Rogue Trooper as he goes on an absence without leave revenge quest to bring down the traitor responsible for the horrendous Quartz Zone massacre that wiped out his fellow genetic infantrymen. Rogue enters a hostile war zone with the aim of gathering 8 videotapes that can prove the traitor's involvement and bring that villain down. The tapes are thrown willy-nilly around the combat zones of New Earth. It's not a huge battle zone, but it wraps around after a few screens, and there's a variety of different environments, like a forest, a wrecked city, and a desert. It's also packed with Nought soldiers, gun emplacements that will take a lot of hits, and landmines that, in much the same way as real landmines, I would avoid standing on if I were you. You won't even get a visit from Princess Diana like people did in the 80s and 90s, on the basis that she's quite dead. Rogue is a tough hombre, that's for sure, thanks to all the meddling with his DNA, but he will still need to draw on the resources of the health packs that are littered around, as his health is not only drained by enemy bullets, but those pesky landmines and also some of the tough environments that will have a slow drain on Rogue's health bar. Bullets are also at a premium, and as Rogue doesn't have a melee attack, you best pick up any ammo boxes to make sure you don't have to resort to ineffectual harsh words to get you through your traumatic battles against the Nauts. Speaking of harsh words, Design haven't forgotten our sentient personal ephemera, as they'll constantly be chirping in with comments about the current situation and giving advice. Here, for example, they talk about New Blackpool. New Blackpool, you say? This must mean that there must be a new Norbreck. I'm glad that they've kept the look of the place if this is the new Norbreck. The game itself is good fun to play, if fairly simplistic. You'll pace fairly slowly around the map, blasting away at the fairly mouth-breather dumb Nauts and trying to find those tapes. It won't represent too much of a challenge once you learn where those tapes are, and due to the small map, that won't be very long at all. Graphics are pretty solid for the era, certainly nothing too flash, but sprites are pretty decently sized and detailed. And the variety of the backgrounds, however small that map may be, is certainly appreciated. Sound is bare bones stuff though. I'm a huge fan of the frustrated robo-duck bark from Gunner's muzzle on the Spectrum, and we'll leave it at that. All in all, it's a slow-paced but perfectly serviceable shooter adventure that is let down by its size. Not as special as the eponymous trooper himself then, but perhaps if the sentient game cassette shouts at you to play it, well, you might well ignore it, but you won't murder it with a sentient hammer. CMVG reviewed Rogue Trooper in January 1987 and gave it a 7 out of 10. They said, not a great game, but not totally naff either. Design have and can do better. But if you're a fan of the comic and like games you can beat pretty easily, then Rogue Trooper is worth looking at. Sinclair User took a look at it the same month as CVG did. Nice to look at, but not fast enough to crack it, as the sort of arcade action game it is supposed to be. They gave it a 3 out of 5. Commodore User waited until May of 1987 before they reviewed Rogue Trooper. They said, it doesn't look amazingly different to Rambo Commando and Who Dares Wins, apart from its lack of colour. The Rogue Trooper storyline, which closely follows its comic counterpart, adds another dimension to the gameplay. Adjust your circuits for somewhat less than 100% thrill power though, a 6 out of 10 from them. So let's stick with 2000 AD comics for the next episode as we look at Strontium Dog. Woof woof. Like, subscribe, and K thanks, bye.